Hi, I'm Melanie and I'm a children's book author. In this video, I'll be telling you more about how you can write compelling sci-fi stories. So I understand that you're interested in submitting a story for Aspire Lab's sci-fi writing competition. That's great. As you can see, the word count is not a lot, but it is possible to tell an exciting short story about futuristic space if you understand the elements that make up a story. I thought a good way for me to illustrate how the different elements of story work is to use one of the most beloved sci-fi of our times, Star Wars. In particular, I will be referencing the 2015 Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens. It doesn't matter if you haven't seen it yet, as I'll be explaining things along the way. However, if you have, I think it's a great way to appreciate how this space opera type sci-fi is so well told in this film. Here's a synopsis of the movie. A scavenger called Rey and a renegade stormtrooper called Finn enlist the help of legendary smugglers and freedom fighters Han Solo and Chewbacca to transport a droid BB-8 carrying information regarding the whereabouts of long-lost Jedi Master Luke Skywalker to General Leia Organa of the Resistance before it falls into the hands of Kylo Ren and the First Order. The most foundational element of a story is its plot. Plot is essentially what happens in a story. And most people who write stories, whether for books or movies or video games, tend to follow the classic conflict resolution plot structure. Many new writers tend to have a lack of conflict, so this is something I hope that you spend some time planning out before you actually write your story. In Star Wars, The Force Awakens, you can see how the story closely follows the conflict resolution structure. The film starts out quite action-packed with Rey, the female lead, rescuing BB-8, and later she meets Finn, an ex-stormtrooper, and they escape the First Order together in a scrappy little spaceship and seek out the Resistance. There's plenty of adventure in between, but the peak drama happens when Kylo Ren, who's the baddie, kills his father, Han Solo, who is on the side of the Resistance. And at the end of the film, the plot resolves with Rey being able to find Jedi Master Luke Skywalker and returning his lightsaber to him. The settings of the story is also an important element to consider. Settings are essentially the where and the when of your story. This writing competition has already narrowed this down for you. Your setting has to be somewhere in space and in the future. Settings help to determine the mood and tone of your story. As you can see from various stills of the Force Awakens movie, the different planets evoke different vibes. The desert in the beginning shows a world which seems desolate and hopeless, while the forest setting where Rey and Kylo Ren fight with their lightsabers signifies a pivotal moment of their growth for the two main characters. At the end of the movie, Rey scales up to a peak of a hill where she meets Luke Skywalker, signifying hope. Since your story is short, it is likely you can only choose one setting for your story, so make it a good one. If you're more visually inclined, you could even draw it out or start a Pinterest mood board with reference images on what that world would look like. This may be able to help you write vivid descriptions of your story settings. Next up, we have characters, and they are just as important as plot. In fact, well-developed characters are often what makes a story memorable, because readers will personally connect with them. In every story, there is a hero that has to go on a journey, and this journey is essentially the conflict resolution structure, which I talked about in an earlier slide. To create that conflict and the tension, there has to be a villain who counters everything the hero thinks or does. And in the case of Star Wars, it also has secondary heroes which support the main heroine, Rey, with her quest to find Luke Skywalker. Likewise, the main villain in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren, has supporting villains who push him towards the dark side of the Force when he feels morally conflicted, or they also help him to carry out his destructive plans. It's important to have readers root for the hero. How can you do that? With your character. Likewise, villains need to pose as a worthy and intense challenge for the hero. In what ways can you create a villain that can shake things up in your story? It's also important to think about what life messages your story is trying to tell. While it's not necessary to have this virtuous moral to teach at the end of your space sci-fi piece, the best stories are ones that usually reflect some form of idealism or observations about life. With The Force Awakens, there are 3 key themes. Firstly, we see Rey get together with various resistance fighters, and we learn that it is possible for individuals from different backgrounds to work together and become friends. With Han Solo finally being brave enough to face his estranged son Kylo Ren, we see that even when things are not ideal, after all he does get killed, Han Solo actually grows as a person by letting go of his painful past and being a loving father in the end. And with the battles between Rey and Kylo Ren, we see that each person has a choice on whether they want to choose the light side or the dark side of the Force. I hope that introducing you to plot, characters, and themes have made things clearer for you. However, if you still feel stuck with your story, these story boxes may help you flesh out your heroes, villains, and plot in a much clearer manner. We've also attached the storybox template in the website, so please download the worksheet. Given that writing is a creative activity, I often like to use other art forms to inspire me while I work on a story, such as visual art or music. I'd like to suggest you attempt this prompt, which may help you generate more ideas for your space sci-fi story. So here's how it goes. Listen to an atmospheric piece of space music, and there are plenty of such clips on YouTube. And as you listen to it, try to answer the following questions. What emotions come to mind? What colors do you associate with the music? What kind of place in space do you imagine you're in? What kind of characters come to mind? And lastly, what is happening to these characters when you hear the music? Pay attention to your first instinctive answers. They're often the ones that may work best with your sense of imagination. I hope that this video has given you the necessary information to start working on your space sci-fi story. Don't forget that I have other videos to help you along your writing journey. I would recommend watching the videos on building a believable sci-fi world and creating cool sci-fi characters to accompany this clip. In the meantime, happy writing!